Hello, everyone. For those of you who are just coming in. Mina, Lida, Sarah.
Okay, we're just going to wait a couple more minutes to let people join.
Hi, Ray.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yeah, everyone is
Okay.
welcome to have camera on or off, whatever feels more comfortable. There will be a part in the webinar where we will be inviting you to participate, but just do so in whatever way feels most comfortable, with or without camera.
We'll give it maybe, Sasha, 2 more minutes.
Yeah, should we give it 2 more minutes and then start just to honor everyone's time?
Hey, Ricky. So we have Sarah, Anna, Ricky, Julia, Mina, and Ray.
Yeah, should we kick it off?
Sure. Okay, people will come in as the hour goes. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Amanda, and I'm here with Sascha. And we're going to be introducing you to psychedelic integration. And so a little bit of how this hour will go. We're going to start with introducing ourselves a bit. We'll also explain to you Recíproco. So many of you are coming here learning about Recíproco for the first time and our method of integration. And then we'll guide you through an activity on integration to sort of get our thinking caps on and hopefully learn some new things. For some of you, this activity might feel very familiar and basic, and for others, it might be a new introduction to integration. So we're just gonna really bring you into our world in a more interactive way. And then we'll close with a bit of what our course is about coming up on January 24th and open up the floor to questions that you might have about the course. And Sascha, do you mind muting Wujokphone? Hi, online studios, but just if you can put yourself on mute for now. If not, Sascha, do you mind muting this person, and then we'll
Yeah.
open up the floor a bit later.
Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, so an introduction, if you want to go to the next slide.
Yeah.
My name is Amanda, and for those of you who don't know me already, and I'm a psychedelic wellness advocate, integration educator. I've been in the industry of the psychedelic industry for a number of years, first beginning with consulting for a company that has made investments in the psychedelic space and was really involved in the infrastructure and technology supporting safe and accessible care with psychedelic medicines. I also have a neuroscience degree where I studied the effects of psilocybin together with psychotherapy for depression outcomes. And I also am involved in the nonprofit sector. I previously directed a nonprofit that supported Indigenous bioculture preservation and regeneration of Indigenous lands that are specifically stewarded by those who work with sacred plant medicine, such as ayahuasca and rapé. And so I come to this with a knowledge coming specifically from the psychedelic space and from neuroscience. And what I noticed early on was that there was this real gap in the industry for how we can support integration, what happens after a psychedelic experience. And so I developed a company called Integra that designs integration programs for professionals for retreat centers. And that's also through that context in which I met Sascha. And so I can let Sascha introduce herself.
Hey, hi everyone. I'm Sascha Vriend. I am coming to the space from a very different angle than Amanda. I'm a clinical psychologist, but I'm also a body psychotherapist trained in somatic forms and embodied forms of psychotherapy, as well as non-substance induced altered states of consciousness. So that means psychedelic states that are not induced through substances such as LSD or psilocybin, but altered states that are induced through methodologies and techniques such as breath work, dance and movement, meditation. And I work in private practice, but obviously I've worked extensively as well in hospital contexts and in community contexts with different projects. And similarly to Amanda, I felt that there was a need for more focus on integration, especially within Portugal, where I live, mostly because people were showing up in my practice and in my spaces coming from potentially very constructive and transformational psychedelic experiences, but where there was a lack of focus on things like harm reduction, but also a lack of sufficient support and resources for people who just needed more help in actually integrating their experiences in a constructive way. So this is where my motivation came to dive into integration and to also start building Recíproco with Amanda.
So essentially, actually, Sascha and I, we met at an integration training in Berlin, and the two of us afterwards, we really came together and we said, look, we have this depth of experience on one side, Sascha being clinically trained and also in non-substance induced altered states, and myself coming specifically from the industry, working also, which I mentioned before, as an integration coach. So I also coach individuals, and with my background, immersing myself with traditional communities and learning about the traditional wisdom of these psychoactive plants and how we can bring these knowledges together. And that's when we designed a Recíproco method, which for us, the goal is ultimately to empower professionals to enhance their skills to provide safe and effective integration care. And we mean integration care and not the type of facilitation of a psychedelic experience in itself. So it's important to make that distinction. We are really focused on integration and all the steps around this. And so the method is really an integrative framework that focuses on the integration of both substance, as we said, it can be anything from LSD, MDMA, ayahuasca, mescaline, psilocybin, to non-substance induced altered states, breathwork, meditation, hypnosis, ecstatic movement. And we really designed this based on these three core values. And the first is reciprocity, this nature of the mutual giving and receiving, how our own healing and our own work that we do with these altered states is actually in service of other and of the greater community and the people around us. And that's very much inspired also by the way traditional communities and indigenous cultures view this work with these altered states. And the second is a responsibility. So for us, integration really means that we are holding ourselves accountable for the role that we play in our own transformation. We are taking responsibility by working with integration. The moment, the peak experience that we have when we work with an altered state is just that. And it doesn't equate to sustainable and meaningful changes if we don't actually take the responsibility upon ourselves to integrate. And the final thing is alignment. So it's really about whether we're speaking from our perspective individually or also as a professional supporting clients, ensuring that our actions, our thoughts, and our behaviors, emotions are in harmony with the larger goals and values of the therapeutic relationship or for our own personal work as well. So that's a little bit about the method, and we'll go into a bit of what the course entails. But for now, we do want to make this really interactive, and we want to bring some concepts of what are altered states, what is integration, and doing that more through an activity that we have prepared for you.
Okay, so I will take us to the activity then.
I would also say if you have any questions during this, please feel free to put it in the chat, whether it's about the course or about the activity, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And we'll also.
Okay, so I'm going to suggest we're going to do an activity now just to kind of, I'm sure a lot of you have a lot of knowledge already on integration, on psychedelics. But what we want to do to just kind of open an awareness around what integration is and what integration is specifically from our approach, we're going to do a quick activity. And if we were, the last time I did this, actually, I asked people to write in the chat, but because we're a more intimate group, I'm going to say that feel free to write in the chat or feel free to speak out loud if you want to voice your contribution. So what we have here, I hope everyone can see it. Is it clear, Amanda?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we're all going to look first together just at this first quadrant where it says substance-induced ASC. Now, we've already given a spoiler. We've given a few examples already, but what I would just like to hear from everyone is examples of what, oh, somebody's shifted it, I think. Examples that you know of substance-induced altered states of consciousness. So an example Amanda already gave was psilocybin, which I will add here, but we would like to hear from you what other examples you are familiar with, either through personal experience or because you work with them, or you've heard of them. So you can write it in the chat, you can say it out loud, whichever way you wish to contribute. Okay, LSD, MDMA, what else? DMT, ketamine. Yes, 5-MeO. Let's do it right. What is a wordy one? Ibogaine.
Mushrooms we have.
Peyote.
Question, Marina, is it the same event as last time? I attended the other one, was if it's the same. So Marina, yes, this activity is the same, and we'll go through the course at the end and have opportunity for Q&A. So if there are specific questions that you have about the course and you want to stick around, or you can also stay again if you wish.
Yeah. One thing to add, Marina, is that we last time we didn't share with you who our guest speakers were going to be, and we will do that today. We have a few guest speakers who will speak on the course. Ayahuasca, 2CB. Okay, so we have a lot of wealth of knowledge here in the group. Two more. MMC. Okay. Any other ones? We filled the boxes, but is there anything else?
What, Chuma?
No? Okay, well then let's leave it there. So already we can see that even when we're talking about only substance-induced ANCs, this is a whole world, right, of completely different substances, equating to completely different experiences, equating to completely different models and methods for Wachuma as well, for integration, right? And Amanda didn't specify this, but integration in our method implies preparation for an experience. It involves considerations around an experience itself, set, substance, setting, support, but also post-integration. So if we look at any of these substance-induced altered states, we can already start to fathom and start to grasp that integration is actually a huge field, right? Okay, so moving on now, just to broaden the concept, because these are the classic psychedelics, right? These are the classic altered states of consciousness that most people talk about when we talk about psychedelic integration. But what about non-substance induced altered states? We've already mentioned a couple as well. Which ones do you know of? Breath work, exactly, that's a classic one. Dreaming, yes, I love that. Meditation, hypnosis.
Static dance.
Static dance.
Giving birth. Nice one.
Giving birth. I'm actually 8 months pregnant. You can't see my belly, but I'm integrating that experience at the moment.
Have imagery work, inner parts work. What else? Any other ones come to mind? Awe-inspiring event from Anna.
Awe-inspiring ritual. Yeah, that I think that comes close to kind of ritual events, right? Religious events as well.
From Sven.
They only seem to pain. Okay, that's interesting.
Fill in the last box. What's one more that we can think of?
Yoga, wonderful. Okay.
Brainwave entertainment. Also binaural beats. It's a great one too.
Yes. Binaural beats, lots of different sound experiences, right? Okay, so this is obviously a little bit more of a complex category. So what can we already gain by looking at this? We can see automatically that there again is a huge breadth of different types of altered states that are non-substance induced. But what we can also see is that some of them are experiences that would be intentionally sought as an altered state experience, right? We would intentionally have a breathwork experience or prepare for a yoga session, so to say, or seek a transformational experience through meditation, right? But others are more accidental, right? Or physiological, like pain is just an inherent experience. It's a physiological experience. Dreaming is an altered state. It's a non-ordinary state that we encounter almost every day, right? So for just to zoom in a little bit on how we embody integration, when we talk about integration in the reciprocal method, we focus on substance-induced altered states and non-substance-induced altered states that are sought out intentionally for the purpose of personal development, growth, transformation, healing, right? So within these states, we consider substance and non-substance induced, but those that are intentionally explored as opposed to accidental states. Another thing that is evident here, actually, which is not so evident, I don't think, in the substance-induced section, is that when we look at altered state experiences, we can acknowledge already that the quantity or dosage of a substance will determine whether it is inherently an altered state of consciousness or an integration technique, right? So if you do something like deep holotropic breath work, this is a high dosage of breath work, let's call it, that is inducing a psychedelic state. However, if you're doing an integration process, you might incorporate deep belly breathing into your integration journey as a form of integration. And that's also breath work. It's just at a different dosage, right? And the same can be true for something like microdosing within the substance-induced space, right? So already we can also see here the importance of considering dosage when we're talking about integration, and how the world of integration is also made very rich by the fact that there are so many different techniques and methods that can be considered integration when we start to also play with things like dosage and context and and the specificities of your experience. Okay, so moving on, we're going to now look at what potential intentions are. So what are different intentions that you have either had personally, or intentions you have seen your clients set when embarking on a psychedelic experience? So intentions are reasons for exploring an altered state, reasons for having a catharsis. Yes. Processing. Vision. Healing. Yes. Connection. Creativity. Fun, yes. Expression. Overcome fear. Exactly. Sorry, we filled the boxes, but if anyone has any additional ideas. Okay, so when we look at these intentions, these are great, by the way. Thank you for all these contributions. We are acknowledging actually that people can be embarking on a very similar psychedelic journey, but their intention will shape their integration process tremendously, right? One person might be seeking a psilocybin experience for the sake of healing, while someone else might be doing it for the sake of fun. So intentions for exploring altered states of consciousness are not only varied, they are a crucial part of an integration plan. So whether we're thinking about our own intention in a personal journey, or whether we're guiding a client through an integration journey in terms of preparation, in terms of considerations around the experience, and in terms of post-integration, it's essential to think about their intentions. Why is that specific person embarking on this? And that is something very subjective. And just to bridge it to what Amanda mentioned about our values at Recíproco initially, Recíproco has its inherent values as a method, but we also vouch very much for the individuality of personal values and worldviews. So this is something we also teach in our course, that learning about the person whose integration journey you are working with, learning about their individual values and their worldview is also crucial for helping them on their integration path in such a way that is not imposing of your own values, imposing of your own intention or what you think they should be embarking on their journey for, but really coming to an understanding of how to support this person's individual intention, their values, their worldview, and their journey in this light, right? Okay, and finally, I'm gonna ask you guys what integration techniques, so being really specific now, what are specific techniques you might have heard of, specific techniques you might have tried already when practicing integration, be them, and again, preparation techniques, techniques and tools that are considerations during an experience, and post-integration techniques. Drawing. Journal. Writing, writing, journaling. Parts work. Okay. Exactly. So actually parts work, we could take everything that's in the above quadrant and put it in the bottom one, right? Breath work, all of that. Singing.
Una also mentioned ritual.
Ritual.
Ritual of intention.
Oh, sorry. Conversation, sharing, yes. Listening to music. Values. Values, so reflecting on values. Is that what you mean, Sven? Reflecting on values.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Reflecting on values.
You could say, as mentioned before, Sascha, microdosing, for example, so the substance as a form of integration.
Mm-hmm.
Would be a last one. Maybe exercise or something, movement, something with the body, dancing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Movement, exactly. Okay. So, integration techniques, another world of different things to explore, right? So I like that someone mentioned parts work again, because, and even, listening to music, this is actually, as I said before, a lot of the things that are in the above quadrants can be considered integration techniques depending on how they're practiced. But what we also see here is that integration techniques vary very much in their nature in terms of what dimension of our self they are supporting integration, right? So we can be integrating on 4 levels. We can be integrating according to the reciprocal method. We integrate on 4 levels. That can be cognitive, it can be emotional, it can be physical, and it can be transpersonal. And different techniques will appeal or support different dimensions more than others. So this is very important as well to consider in an integration plan. Is my client or am I personally needing more integration on a cognitive level? Is that my comfort zone? Is it what helps me more? Or is it simply the part I haven't integrated so well on and the part that I need to support more? Then I'm going to pick integration techniques that help me integrate on a more cognitive level. If, on the other hand, say you've had an experience where you had massive cognitive, philosophical, psychological insights, your whole world is blown open, you're thinking all these interesting new thoughts, but for some reason, all of these thoughts are lacking a sense of embodiment or of grounding or a palpable way of introducing them into your life, or they feel quite disconnected from your sense of physical self, then movement or physical forms of integration might be a good way of supporting your integration process, right? Maybe you're someone who already naturally integrates a lot in your mind, and you can make beautiful sense of your experience and have constructive thoughts when journaling. But then you might, as time goes by, feel, oh, I'm actually feeling a little dissociated from my body, actually, with all this consciousness expansion. I'm so open here in this part of my body, in my mind, that my body is lacking integration. So we play with this as well in the reciprocal method. We really consider the different dimensions and the value of creating integration plans that support, again, the specific person, their specific needs, and their specific intention. Playing a lot with this integrative approach to integration: mind, body, cognition, and the transpersonal, the spiritual. Okay, so that is what we have from our activity.
Maybe Sasha, I
Yeah,
would add also, do you want to talk a bit about the multidisciplinary aspect as well, which really connects to these sort of 4 quadrants and what we speak about with
Yeah.
integration?
sure. I'm not sure if we have that.
We don't have it in the,
We don't. Okay. So as I said, we focus on integration from an integrative perspective. That's always a fun one to say. Integrative basically means mind, body, consciousness, and transpersonal. So people, we see individuals, people, as containing all these dimensions, and therefore it's actually impossible to work one without working the other. These are all intrinsically linked within us. So by focusing on an integrative approach, also naturally embody a multidisciplinary approach. So what does this mean? This means that we encourage integration coaches, therapists, teachers to acknowledge the value that each of you, I'm going to say, or already address you as professionals or as people who are supporting others, the value that you as an individual professional bring to your client in terms of what you offer them, maybe as a therapist or as a coach or as a doctor, but also to realize the value that other professionals can bring to your client when working on integration. Where is the limit of my skill set, and where does the skill set of another person begin that can actually support integration for my client in a more complete, what we call multidisciplinary way. And the intention of that is not only to create integration care that's more robust, right? That someone who needs it has access to the correct medical support if necessary, or but also because that is really where the richness lies in terms of acknowledging, I think, the inherent nature of psychedelic experiences, which is that there is a lot about them we do not know yet, right? And this was actually something really fun that Amanda and I discussed a lot in the creation of this program. Sometimes I would say, oh, well, Amanda, how do we fill this gap in integration? She said, well, who actually knows? No one knows that, Sascha. What are you trying to answer the secrets of the universe? Right? So there will be moments when it's indicated to refer someone to a shaman even, or someone who knows more about a spiritual dimension within their worldview. There will be moments when it is helpful, if not referring your client, to consult yourself as a professional with another professional. That's also why we want to encourage these spaces of professionals sharing knowledge and sharing information from different dimensions, from different fields of, from different fields on integration. Because when someone is trying to make sense of something so transformational as a psychedelic experience, the more information, the better. And we really vouch for this kind of an attitude towards integration. There is no one dictatorial way of practicing integration. It's actually something that should be open, and we focus, especially within our course, on basically creating discussion, bringing all the information we have to the table and discussing it as professionals in terms of what can be the most helpful or useful for a specific person. So just to move on from that activity, what were key lessons that we can grasp from that activity in terms of integrating altered states? First of all, I've already mentioned this, integration is integrative. It's not just one dimension. If we're integrating only on one dimension, that's not wrong, but it's potentially not as rich as integrating on all the dimensions. Altered states are substance and non-substance induced, so we can have psychedelic journeys induced through specific substances or through different practices. Integration encompasses the entire journey, so preparation, during, and post-experience integration. What I imagine is that if any of you have already have experience working within the field of integration or practice in integration, that the most obvious one is post-experience integration, right? I had an experience, and whether it's 5 minutes after I had a group circle and that was post-experience integration, or 2 months later I was journaling on it, that's where we tend to think about integration. But we really, because the constructiveness and what I like to call the juice of an experience is really enhanced by through proper preparation, especially when we start to consider aspects like harm reduction and safety and other things I've mentioned, like intention setting. We really put an emphasis as well on preparation. So things like someone mentioned values and reflection, but values and reflection can be very rich after, especially if you've already reflected on your values before. Has there been a shift in my values from before until after, right? So the more we do in preparation for an experience, actually the richer the post-integration most often, right? So when we talk about preparation, we talk about techniques that can be used to prepare the body, to prepare the mind, to prepare, someone's psychological attitude towards the experience, so that when they go into it, they're already going with a body of awareness, and hopefully with a kit of tools to support them through the rest of their journey. Then in terms of considerations during, we talk about the 4 S's. So we talk about set. What is a set in which someone is going into an altered state? This means, what is my inner state as I embark on this psychedelic journey? Set, where am I at emotionally? What am I feeling? How did I wake up this morning? Am I coming out of a breakup? Am I in a very expansive phase of my lifetime? That's our set. So that influences a psychedelic experience tremendously. 2 people can have what appears to be exactly the same experience in terms of dosage and context and substance and everything. But if they're 2 completely different people with 2 completely different inner realities and inner worlds and inner feelings, they're going to have completely different experiences. So considering set during an experience is essential. Considering setting, as I mentioned, is also essential. What is the place I'm having it? Who is the facilitator of the experience? Is it a shaman? Is it a psychiatrist? What is the group I'm having this experience in? And what is the actual physical setting? What is the lighting like? What country am I in? All these things that are important to consider when talking about the experience itself. Set, substance, obviously, what is the actual substance? Is the substance suited? So is the substance suited to my intention? Is it suited to myself? What experience do I already have with this substance? Is it a new substance? Is it one that I've heard about? And support. Support is the last one, the last of the 4 S's, and that embodies not only our support as integration professionals who are sometimes potentially present at experience, but sometimes not, right? Sometimes people are, people have these experiences by themselves, or they have them guided by altered states facilitators, practitioners who practice altered states experiences, or shamans. But support before, support during. If it's not going to be us, then who is going to be their support during the experience? Do they know the facilitator? Do they feel comfortable with the facilitator? But also support afterwards in terms of the community that they return to, or the context that they return to afterwards. And yeah, so that's it. So our integration plans, when we explore how to design an integration plan, really focus on all of these aspects: preparation, during, and post-experience integration. And in terms of post-experience, all I'll say, just to keep it a bit short, is anything from what happens just after, or journaling just after, to also long-term integration. How can I make meaningful change that lasts and that has whatever impact I want it to have more long-term, right? Okay, and then this is just bridging back to what Amanda said about reciprocity. I found it interesting to see that when mentioning intentions for exploring integration, a lot of them were, or actually I won't say a lot of them were, what didn't show up so much, which is also potential intention for integration, is a more relational or community-based intention, right? So sometimes we forget actually that all of those things you mentioned as intentions, my own healing, my own transformation, that will have a relational and a societal and a community impact, and and on a grander scheme, an impact on our larger ecosystem, right? So when we talk about reciprocity, we're talking about just that give and take, that mutual transformation that happens whenever one person transforms, right? So just like in a therapeutic relationship, it's impossible for someone to go in and say, oh, I want my therapist to heal me. That won't happen, right? What happens is 2 people come together, and through mutual conversation, mutual transformation, learning, sharing, loving, all of that, 2 people are transformed, not just one. So that is how we also see, that's how we see psychedelic experiences, whether it's the relationship of the person with the substance, that's a relationship that's reciprocal, the person and the mushroom, whether it's the person with their guide, the person with their integration supporter, or the person with their community and their environment, right? We really emphasize the reciprocal nature of transformation. And finally, this wasn't so present in the activity we did, but one final thing that we also really focus on when we talk about integration is the ethics and the harm reduction aspect, because ethics is a huge field when we're concerned with psychedelic experiences. It's an ever evolving field. And it's important, again, not in the sense of teaching basic ethical principles and harm reduction principles, but also creating spaces where the ethics of psychedelics can be discussed is very valuable, right? Okay, so I'm gonna pass it back to Amanda. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. So this was just kind of an exercise to get us to talk about these key points, and our course doesn't mimic this sort of journey arc or any of that. It was more for us to kind of, all of us to collectively add some of our insights around what integration might be, our intentions, and then to be able to share some of these points from that. And this course is really meant for people who are interested, of course, in developing this for themselves. So integration is, most of you who have shared many of the substances, I would assume that most of you have experience with substance-induced altered states, especially. And what are the different frameworks of understanding integration, and how can we really apply that when we're supporting others? And so the reason why we designed this is also to make this psychedelic literacy, and we say psychedelic in terms of substances and non-substances, but to help empower people to be more psychedelic literate when they are working with others in a integration capacity, or also just for themselves. But how do we make this accessible and comprehensible for all? How can we make this language of integration just as top of mind and at the tip of the tongue as would these keywords, buzzwords of set, substance, setting? How do we make integration part of that conversation? And so this is, for us, this course, we have a whole introduction to altered states experiences in history and across culture. We talk about the neuroscience of integration. We talk about the key research studies that are now happening, that are involving this language of integration. What's currently out there, what's actually missing in integration from a research perspective, and the reasons why also cognitively integration really matters because of what's happening in the brain in terms of neuroplasticity. We go into the different techniques around integration, some of the ones that we mentioned, of course, dance and movement, but how do we actually apply that as professionals for our clients? Integration also includes these really like a depth of set, substance, setting, and support, and how we can use that language when we're working with our clients. Integration as a reflection of a reciprocal relationship. So we get into what kinds of reciprocal relationships can occur, a therapeutic client relationship between peers. That's also what can be uncovered, and obviously the ethics. So ethics is really important to us. And part of what we also speak about is some of these really ethically ambiguous situations that might come up that affect integration. For example, somebody who comes and who has a very, who's gone through and done a very traditional ritual or ceremony with a traditional indigenous healer, and they have coming up with something that would be considered a psychotic break by the clinical community, but would actually be uncovered as a sort of a spiritual crisis or a spiritual emergency with very different implications on what that integration might be like for a person that is seeing it through a lens that might be more shamanic in nature, right? So what does integration actually look like for these kind of situations? And how can we as professionals address that? So these are sort of just to give a background of what the training actually looks like. And another key aspect here is to strengthen capacity to support not only your own work, but to support your peers. So we talk really about a multidisciplinary approach. So if someone is coming to this who is training to be a coach, or who already is a life coach or business coach, wants to bring in integration into their professional practice, how are they then also relating to and referring out to others? For example, massage therapists, traditional Chinese medicine, nutritionists. How are we all creating sort of an ecosystem for ourselves so that when we're ready to provide that integration support, we also know the conversations that we need to have with the others that are in service of somebody's health and well-being? And then another part of our training, as mentioned, Sascha and I come from really different backgrounds. And on the one hand, we have Sascha, who is trauma informed. We didn't even mention trauma yet, but that is a very, very big part of Sascha's practice. And it is a buzzword. People talk about trauma and et cetera. But what does that actually mean to be trauma informed? And what are our limitations depending on where we are professionally within integration? Are we actually able to support people who are going through deep trauma? What does that actually look like? What would a clinical perspective be on integration versus what would be a perspective that's more based, rooted in nature? Somebody who works with elders and ancient wisdom and ritual, and what would that look like? What does integration look like from that side? And how can we bring those two together to make a really comprehensive method for others, to help others ultimately? So we can go to the next slide. And who is this for? So it is for professionals who are supporting both non-substance and substance-induced altered states. We really do go into depth around these non-substances because they can be highly impactful and transformational for people. equally as dissociating for others when it's in a challenging moment, and integration is needed for those as well. And it's for licensed and accredited professionals, so clinicians, mental health professionals, facilitators, coaches, therapists, including any licensed acupuncturists, massage therapists, somatics, breath work, sound healing, anyone who's gone through a training program that's specifically for that modality. Also aspiring professionals, so people who are in training or they're looking to be trained in these areas and they want to start to already have the language of psychedelic integration in under their belt so that they can apply this when they actually do start to support others. And then motivated people who want to just learn. I often say, when people, I've personally have wanted to do a yoga teacher training for a very long time. I don't intend to become a yoga teacher. I like to use this sort of metaphor because we still go, a lot of people attend these trainings so that they can really, really strengthen the depth of their own integration. The course is targeted for those who are professionals and who are looking to support others. However, that does not by any means prevent people from looking to really deepen this for themselves as well. And then the next. We also have some special guest speakers that are going to be participating in this course with us, including Jean Ribeiro. He is a psychiatrist and he started the first psychedelic assisted therapy center in Portugal. Sandra Dreisbach, she is a wonderful ethicist who's really at the forefront of psychedelic ethics in the space. And Maya Abu, she is very much coming from the lens of shamanic practice and what can come up. I mentioned, spiritual crises and these sort of challenging transpersonal experiences, what to really do about that from that perspective. So we have 3 really amazing guests who are going to be speaking